Carter's Holler by Kimbra Gish. Trouble was brewing. I'd been feeling it for days, an uneasy, restless feeling, like fire shut up in my bones. I couldn't put a name to what ailed me, except that Tom Lynn, my dearest friend, who'd come over to eat at our house whenever I cooked and sit on the porch swing with me these past 3 years, ever since I was 10, had disappeared. Nobody knew what happened to him, though they searched and searched. Didn't scare him off now, did ya? Pod asked with a chuckle. I don't reckon, I replied, but I was worried. One morning after Tom had been missing more than a week, I was making sop and biscuits for breakfast when all of a sudden I didn't see the iron cast skillet filled with sop. In my mind, I instead saw a clearing in what looked like Carter's Holler, which lay back in Kentucky's mountain. Folks didn't go up there if they could help it. Some said a boy had disappeared up there and whispered other bad things. In my vision, I saw dogwoods all around. In the clearing, a circle of pale people with large, pale eyes. In the midst of them lay Tom Flynn, fast asleep. One of the strange pale folk bent over, and her white hair fell about her face. Pap interrupted my reverie. Jenny Carter, what's the matter with you? Pap demanded. I jumped. My hand had stopped stirring the gravy. I couldn't explain the visions I had. All day long I kept thinking about Tom, lying there in the death-like sleep, trapped in Carter's Holler. I had to rescue him. I resolved that as soon as my family was in bed, I would go out in the dark alone to find Tom myself. After Mom and Pop had gone to bed, I took a lantern and matches and snuck out. I could only see a little ways in front of me as I headed in the direction of Carter's Holler. I'd gone about 1.5 miles when I felt a rush of icy air kiss my cheek. Something cold knocked me to the ground and my lantern went out. Every time I tried to find the matches, the cold would knock me to the ground again. But after a few minutes, my eyes adjusted to the dark, and a pale gray form took shape. Reckon you've had enough, Jimmy Carter? It asked. I don't reckon I have. I pushed myself on my knees. Who are you? It laughed. It was a boy's voice. A boy who was past the age of being a child, but not quite a man yet. Who was I? You ought to ask, he said. Been gone since your pap was a boy, and nobody ever comes out here to talk to me. Stay here with me. Soon you'll be what I am. A haint? Outsiders called them ghosts, or spooks. I can't stay here with you, I said firmly. I've got something I have to do, and I need to get on. No, 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 cried the haint. I'm so lonely. Then his voice sharpened like the edge of a good knife. I'll make you stay, he said in a voice so fierce it chilled the very marrow of my bones. If I died and became a haint, what would my family do? And who would save Tom? Nobody else even knew where he was. I had to get him. I had to find him somehow, rescue him, do something. Right about then I got an idea. Can you eat? I asked the haint, who stared at me with hollow eyes. I don't know, he said. There's nothing to eat out here but berries and roots. No biscuits, no cornbread, no dumplings, nothing. I reached into my bag and drew out a biscuit spread with my homemade apple butter. This is for you, I said. If only you'll let me go on my way. The haint stared at the biscuit, then took it from my fingers and took a bite. He closed his eyes and a smile crept across his thin face. Go wherever you're going, Jenny, he said. But if you come back home, come out here some night and see poor old cold John again. And bring another biscuit if you can. I got a ways further, and then I heard the rustling in the tall grass. Before I could think, something sprang out in front of me. It was a strange creature about the size of a large dog, and covered in thick black fur. Its tail was long and bushy, and it had long, sharp-looking claws. I'd heard enough stories to know what this was. Once a mountain man met a terrifying critter, and he managed to cut off its tail. It ran off, and since he didn't have any salt pork or ham on his soup beans, he used the tail for flavoring. But it came back after its tail that night, and tore the man to pieces. If I didn't want the tapio tearing me to pieces, I'd have to talk fast. Go back, it said. Get off my land or I'll tear you to shreds. Tom's face flashed before my eyes. I couldn't abandon him. Let me pass, I begged. I won't cause any trouble. The monster cried. No, it said. You just want to steal my tailpio. No, I don't. I'd rather season my pinto beans with salt pork or ham. Then I had an idea. I made some biscuits with ham and put them into my bag. I reached in and pulled them out. Do you want some ham biscuit? Well, if that didn't beat all that I'd ever seen, the talpio came up close to my hand and opened its jaws. I saw its rows of sharp, razor-sharp teeth, and feared it would bite my hand off. But it gobbled up the ham biscuit and then stepped back out of my way. "You're welcome to go as you like," I said, "after a treat like that." And so, my heart still hammering in my chest, I went on. Tom was waiting. I walked on for miles through the dark and cold, until at last I saw a fire up ahead. There was a clearing in the holler. I'd seen my vision, and there was a ring of pale figures, and in the midst a woman with long, white hair. Beside the woman lay Tom, who looked fast asleep. I walked straight up to them and cleared my throat. Everyone whirled around. The woman's pale green eyes blazed, her lips curled up in a smirk. My heart pounded. I'm Jenny Carter, a friend of Tom Lynn, and he's waited back among his own kind," I said, hoping my voice didn't sound as shaky to them as it did to me. All of them laughed, but Tom stirred just then, and after a moment his blue eyes opened. "Ginny?" he asked, in a voice so hoarse it sounded like a rusty gate. I ran to him. The lady smiled, but it was a cruel smile. "If you hadn't come," she said, "he would have slept 100 years. "We're going home," I said firmly. "We are the Dogwood people," the woman said. "What makes you think you can take him from us?" I'd heard stories about the Dogwood people. If you didn't cut down the dogwoods, they'd grant you favors. But sometimes they showed a mean streak. "He doesn't belong to you," I replied. The woman laughed. "Do you really believe, little girl, that you have what it takes to hold a man? You have my leave to try." I held tight to Tom, but before I could even take another breath, he had turned into a giant copperhead snake. I heard the woman laughing, but I kept my arms tight around Tom. And then the copperhead turned into a bear. I could barely hold him, but I held fast as tight as I could. Before I knew it, the bear had changed, and I held in my arms the talpio, scratching at my arms and face, biting me with its sharp teeth. But then it was Tom in my arms again. Only he was in a death-like sleep. "You can hold him," the woman said, sounding amused. "But if you have to carry him a while, I think you'll weary of him." My heart sank, but I was tall for my age and strong. I gathered Tom in my arms and hoisted him over my shoulder, and then started off, wobbling my way down the hill. Already I felt exhausted, but I didn't dare rest. I had to keep going. I walked like a death-like weight of Tom's body on my shoulders for what seemed like a long way. But then we crossed out of the holler itself. I felt movement and heard a soft groan, and then heard his voice. "Ginny, why are you carrying me?" I stopped and eased him down to the grass. "What do you remember?" I remember chopping wood. There was this old dogwood. I thought... He blinked in the dawn light. "You came for me. You found me." I smiled. "I did. You're worth finding. You're always worth finding." He smiled back, and then he reached for my hand. "Let's go," he said. "And you can tell me everything. I hope I didn't put you out of a lot of trouble." "Some trouble's worth taking," I said. I didn't want to let Tom disappear ever again. "I've got an apple stack cake at home," I added. "That'd be nice, Jenny." He squeezed my hand. "Thank you." And on we walked, back towards home, hand in hand, as the mountains changed into goldenrod and morning sun above us. Now answer questions 1, 2, and 3.